Today I am reviewing the new off-Broadway rock musical The Lonely Few with music and lyrics by Zoe Sarnak, book by Rachel Bonds, and directed by Trip Cullman and Ellenore Scott, running through June 9th at the Newman Mills Theater at the Roberts W. Wilson MCC Theater Space at 511 West 52nd Street in New York City. Be a rock star and visit my Patreon page where you can, for as little as $1 a month, support this show and my classic cinema podcast, Yesterday's Matinee. Thank you to all my patrons, especially my Neo and Hamilton tier patrons, and welcome to the new ones. A link will be in the description. A raucous rock musical, The Lonely Few is overall an electric show with a cast of talented actor-musicians telling a story of love, family, and passions. Starting in a small, mostly conservative Kentucky town, the eponymous The Lonely Few is a local rock band that gigs at the local bar, Paul's Juke Joint. It is led by guitarist and vocalist Lila, led by a passion-filled Lauren Patton, and fellow bandmates Dillon, played by Damon Dauno, JJ, played by Helen J. Shen, and the bar's proprietor, Paul, played by Thomas Silcott. When Paul's ex-wife's daughter, Amy, played by Taylor Iman Jones, comes to visit, she and Lila make an instant connection, and the Lonely Few are soon touring as a support act for Amy's own musical act. Left behind is Lila's alcoholic brother, Adam, played by Peter Mark Kendall, who Lila essentially ghosts once she starts to experience the joy of being on tour and the joys of starting a relationship with Amy. Initially, The Lonely Few plays out more as a play with music. The first half of the show, the songs are performed as diegetic numbers by The Lonely Few and its members and Amy. About halfway through, though, the use of the songs begin to split between diegetic numbers and non-diegetic music. This is something I consider as a weakness in a show. It feels like the show was intended to have nothing but diegetic numbers, with the numbers still having lyrical ties to the characters' motivations throughout the show. But when the drama moves away from the stage, being able to perform the musical numbers as part of the Lonely Few's act, or Amy's act, becomes unsustainable. It seems like a conceit, and I think it could have been better applied to balance the musical numbers as diegetic and non-diegetic throughout the entire show instead of just the back half. This doesn't take anything away from the musical numbers themselves. Zoe Sarnak's songs feel like they were inspired by the folk, rock, and alternative rock artists of the 1990s, with echoes of artists like Norah Jones, Sheryl Crow, Sleater Kinney, and Melissa Etheridge, and Lauren Patton performs as a natural spiritual successor to these icons. I admit this may also have been subliminally planted into my head, as various 90s artists were featured throughout the pre-show. This did create a certain setting disconnect, as the music from the pre-show made me feel like the show was going to be set in the 1990s, but as the show progresses, it becomes apparent that it is set modern day. This is also seen in Samantha C. Jones's costuming, as the costumes feel more lifted out of the 90s than the modern day. Granted, I'll concede that people today are still wearing band tees from the 1980s and 90s, so it may be my Gen X musical upbringing connecting with the show more than being in touch with current fashion. The cast is great. Lauren Patton is dynamite as Lila, and her chemistry with Taylor Iman Jones is fantastic. The two maintain a tenuous balance of love for each other with passion for their music, and once Lila reconnects with her brother Adam, an added degree of conflict comes as she has to weigh her own ambitions and love for Amy against her brother's welfare. Peter Mark Kendall will likely be overshadowed by all the other actors who all have musical numbers, while Adam drinks himself into oblivion. But to dismiss him would be a disservice, as he gives an amazing performance as a man on his last leg, never leading the audience, instead keeping the tension of what will happen to him up in the air until the end of the story. The rest of the supporting cast is great. Thomas Silcott gets some great moments with Taylor Iman Jones as Amy and Paul reflect on their former relationship as stepfather and daughter. The two get some very tender moments that help give definition to both characters. Being in a supporting role, Damon Dauno, who I enjoyed as Curly in the last Broadway revival of Oklahoma and was the off-Broadway Orpheus in Hadestown, doesn't get as many numbers as he has in other shows, but he brings a bit of down-to-earth sensitivity around the more spectacular characters. But when he's on guitar, he gets some great moments to show off his chops. Helen J. Shen brings much of the comic relief to the show as JJ, and though yes, she is funny, giving her a sweet innocence, she is also a fireball of energy and an amazing musician, playing at least 3 different instruments. There's also an awesome pit band that takes over when the characters step out of their diegetic musical moments into their non-diegetic moments, and they also double as Amy's band. Sibyl Wickersheimer has designed a fantastic set with the bar to Paul's juke joint looking completely functional, stage left. The stage of the band is on stage right, and above the bar, Adam and Lila's apartment. For audience members who want to be closer to the action, there are cabaret tables set up on stage that are available for $39 a seat. It's not interactive, but you do get a much closer view of the show as the cast members perform around you, and at one point, on top of a table. It does require you to have to adjust to see scenes happening all around you, and the angle seems to suggest that you may not be able to see all the action happening in Adam and Lila's apartment. Mid-house, there are also loungers and love seats that are available for sitting, which, if I come back to see the show again, I would really love to have one of those for a seat. It's all part of the aesthetic of the show, and I love it. There are also some Easter eggs throughout the stage with references to the songs of the show hidden throughout. Some, like the Neon Nowhere and Wondering above the stage, are obvious, but others not so much, so keep a lookout for those. The Lonely Few is an overall great rock musical. The shift of adding non-diegetic songs midway feels unnatural, and the story feels a little lost in time, but its score rocks, the cast is amazing, and the story of Lila and her struggle between career, love, and family is passionate, sensitive, and relatable. Especially if you're a rock musical fan, this is a show you don't want to miss. But I'm only one man's opinion, so be sure to leave yours in the comments below. If you'd like to see The Lonely Few, I'll leave a link in the description where you can get tickets. Also in the description will be a link to my Patreon page where you can support my channel. You can also support me by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and click the notification bell to be alerted to future reviews. My next review will be the Broadway revival of Home. Thank you for watching, and I will see you at the theater.